Amanda Carter had always been the heart of her quiet suburban community, a bright and compassionate young woman with a promising future. Bryan Fields, on the other hand, was the shadow no one noticed, a seemingly unremarkable handyman with a sinister obsession. Their paths collided in a way that would shock the world, leaving a trail of terror captured on camera and a story so chilling it became impossible to forget. Amanda Carter's life seemed perfect to anyone looking in from the outside. She was a 21-year-old college student with big dreams of becoming a veterinarian, driven by her love for animals. Her days were filled with studying, part-time work at an animal shelter, and cherished moments with her best friend, Megan. Amanda lived in a quiet suburb where neighbors knew each other, and doors were often left unlocked, a community untouched by fear. But that serenity would shatter one ordinary evening, transforming her life forever. It was a chilly autumn night when Amanda left the campus library, her backpack slung over one shoulder and a takeaway coffee cup warming her hands. The air was crisp, the streets lined with golden leaves under the dim glow of streetlights. Her neighborhood was only a 20-minute walk away, and she'd taken the same route countless times. The faint hum of passing cars and the rustling of leaves filled the air as she made her way home, lost in thought about an upcoming exam. A security camera mounted on a neighbor's garage captured Amanda as she strolled down the sidewalk, her breath visible in the cold night air. The footage showed nothing unusual at first. A young woman walking briskly, her steps steady. But then, about halfway through the clip, something changed. Amanda glanced over her shoulder, her pace faltering. Her body language shifted, her once relaxed demeanor replaced with a hint of unease. A shadowy figure appeared in the distance, barely noticeable at first. The person stayed far enough behind to avoid suspicion, but their presence was deliberate. Amanda's unease grew palpable as she glanced back again, this time more urgently. She clutched her bag tighter, her steps quickening. The figure mirrored her speed, maintaining the same calculated distance. In another segment of footage, Amanda passed under a street lamp. Her face was briefly illuminated, revealing wide, anxious eyes scanning her surroundings. She pulled out her phone, likely to call someone or appear busy, a common instinct when feeling unsafe. The figure, now closer, moved partially into the shadows, their identity concealed by a hooded jacket. As Amanda approached the corner near her house, the tension in the video was almost unbearable. Suddenly, she broke into a run, her silhouette disappearing out of the camera's frame. Moments later, the figure followed, moving swiftly but eerily composed, as if they knew exactly where she was headed. The street grew silent once more, with only the faint rustle of leaves in the wind. What happened next was a mystery that would grip the world. Amanda never made it home that night. Her disappearance marked the beginning of a chilling series of events that would unravel a sinister plot hiding in the shadows of her seemingly idyllic life. The quiet suburb, once considered a haven, became a place of fear and speculation, as Amanda's fate remained unknown and a dangerous predator lurked unseen. 2 days after Amanda Carter vanished, her best friend Megan filed a missing person report. Megan had tried calling and texting Amanda repeatedly, but her messages went unanswered, something entirely out of character for the reliable young woman. Alarmed, Megan visited Amanda's home, only to find it eerily quiet. Her car was still parked in the driveway, and the front door was locked. It was as if Amanda had simply disappeared into thin air. Police arrived shortly after the report was filed, and their initial sweep of the house revealed no signs of a struggle. Amanda's keys, wallet, and jacket were still inside, suggesting she had returned home briefly before vanishing. It was an unsettling discovery. Her room was untouched, her bed neatly made, and her study notes laid out on the desk as if she had intended to use them. Nothing seemed out of place, but the absence of clues was haunting in itself. Investigators began canvassing the neighborhood, speaking with anyone who might have seen or heard something unusual. A breakthrough came when a neighbor, Mrs. Callahan, mentioned her security camera might have picked up some footage of Amanda that night. The video revealed Amanda walking toward her home, looking increasingly anxious, followed by a hooded figure who kept a calculated distance. The last few seconds of the footage showed Amanda disappearing from view as she turned a corner near her house, with the figure following closely behind. This footage raised more questions than it answered. Who was the hooded figure? Why were they following Amanda? And most importantly, what happened after she vanished from the camera's view? Detectives combed through the video frame by frame, but the person's face remained obscured by the shadows and their hood. The next major clue came when a local dog walker stumbled upon Amanda's phone in a wooded area about 2 miles from her home. The phone was slightly damaged but still functional. Investigators hoped it might hold critical information. After a forensic team unlocked the device, they discovered several video files taken the night of her disappearance. The first clip was shaky and showed Amanda running through dense woods, her breathing rapid and panicked. The faint glow of the phone's flashlight illuminated branches whipping past as she fled. In the second clip, the sound of her footsteps was interspersed with muffled screams and the distant crunch of leaves, suggesting she wasn't alone. The most disturbing video was the final one. Amanda's breathing grew louder, heavier, and suddenly stopped. The screen went black, but the audio captured a faint, sinister sound, a low, guttural chuckle. The discovery of the video sent shockwaves through the community. The idea that Amanda had recorded her own terrifying ordeal was almost too much to bear. The woods where her phone was found became the focal point of an exhaustive search, with officers combing the area for additional clues. Despite their efforts, Amanda herself was nowhere to be found, and the chilling mystery only deepened. As the days turned into weeks, Amanda Carter's disappearance dominated headlines. The eerie footage from her phone had gone viral, sparking widespread speculation. True crime enthusiasts dissected every frame, while locals grew increasingly paranoid. Police continued their investigation, determined to find Amanda and bring the person responsible to justice. Detective Harris, a seasoned investigator known for his methodical approach, led the case. With no immediate suspects, his team focused on analyzing the few leads they had. The hooded figure from the security footage became their primary concern. Who were they? And why were they following Amanda? The unsettling videos from her phone provided clues about the environment she had fled through, a thick, wooded area. But they offered no clear answers about her captor's identity. A major breakthrough came when a neighbor reported seeing a suspicious vehicle near Amanda's house several times in the weeks leading up to her disappearance. It was an older white van, parked inconspicuously at various spots around the neighborhood. The witness, initially dismissing it as insignificant, came forward after remembering seeing the van the night Amanda vanished. Detective Harris tracked the lead with determination. Surveillance footage from nearby traffic cameras revealed the van driving toward the wooded area where Amanda's phone had been discovered. Investigators traced the vehicle's license plate to Bryan Fields, a 38-year-old handyman with a criminal history. While most of his prior offenses were minor, trespassing and petty theft, his background check revealed a more troubling pattern. Bryan had been fired from multiple jobs for inappropriate behavior toward female clients, and restraining orders had been filed against him by 2 women in the past. Armed with a warrant, police searched Bryan's home, a secluded property on the outskirts of town. What they found sent chills through the investigation team. Hidden in a locked basement were disturbing items that tied Bryan directly to Amanda. Photographs of her, clearly taken without her knowledge, were pinned to a corkboard. Some were of her walking to and from her house, while others showed her inside her home, through her windows. Equally unsettling were the personal items Bryan had collected: trinkets, jewelry, and even an old scarf Amanda's friends confirmed belonged to her. The evidence painted a terrifying picture of obsession and stalking. Yet, there was still no sign of Amanda herself. Despite hours of interrogation, Bryan refused to answer any questions about her whereabouts, maintaining a cold, eerie silence. Forensic teams scoured Bryan's property for additional evidence. They discovered a map marked with locations around town, including the wooded area where Amanda's phone had been found. This fueled fears that Amanda might have been hidden or harmed somewhere remote. The weight of Bryan's guilt seemed undeniable, but without Amanda, the case felt incomplete. Authorities ramped up their search efforts, focusing on the locations marked on the map. Time was running out, and the haunting question loomed. Was Amanda still alive? Or had Bryan's twisted fixation ended in tragedy? The community waited anxiously as investigators worked to uncover the truth, one clue at a time. Weeks had passed since Amanda Carter's disappearance, and the hope of finding her alive was fading. The discovery of Bryan Fields and the damning evidence in his home had brought the investigation closer to the truth. But without Amanda, there was no closure. The search continued relentlessly, with officers combing through every lead and scouring the locations marked on Bryan's map. Each passing day felt heavier, the weight of uncertainty pressing down on everyone involved. Then, on an otherwise quiet morning, a hiker exploring a dense, rarely visited part of the woods stumbled upon something unusual. Hidden beneath a canopy of overgrown foliage was a small makeshift door, barely visible against the forest floor. Intrigued and uneasy, the hiker called the authorities, suspecting it might be connected to Amanda's case. Police arrived quickly and uncovered a chilling sight, a hidden underground bunker, expertly concealed and fortified. The entrance, secured with a heavy padlock, gave the first indication of the horrors within. Breaking it open, the officers descended into the darkness, their flashlights revealing a cramped, horrifying space. Amanda was there, alive but barely recognizable. Her once vibrant appearance had been replaced by pale skin, hollow cheeks, and a look of sheer terror. She was shackled to a corner of the room, her wrists raw and bruised from the restraints. The officers immediately freed her, her trembling body collapsing into their arms. The footage of her rescue, later released to the media, would become one of the most harrowing images of the case, a stark reminder of her unimaginable ordeal. The bunker itself was a grotesque testament to Bryan Fields' twisted mind. Surveillance cameras were mounted in every corner, recording Amanda's every move. A small monitor and recording equipment sat on a makeshift desk, suggesting that Bryan had been watching her remotely. The walls were lined with disturbing reminders of her captivity. Food wrappers, a torn blanket, and crude attempts at escape etched into the wooden walls. As Amanda was rushed to the hospital, detectives began piecing together what had happened. She had been abducted just steps from her home and driven to the secluded location under the cover of darkness. Bryan had planned everything meticulously, from the hidden bunker to the isolation of the woods. For weeks, Amanda had been kept in darkness, subjected to psychological torment as Bryan monitored her every move. Amanda's recovery was slow and arduous. Though she was physically safe, the trauma of her captivity left deep emotional scars. She recounted her story to detectives in fragments, revealing the chilling extent of Bryan's obsession. He had controlled her every moment, feeding her just enough to keep her alive and breaking her spirit with constant surveillance and isolation. The discovery of the bunker and Amanda's rescue shocked the nation. The footage of her trembling hands clutching the officers who freed her became a symbol of both horror and hope. Against all odds, she had survived. And now, the focus turned to ensuring that Bryan Fields would never have the chance to hurt anyone again. The rescue of Amanda Carter was a miracle that brought a wave of relief to her family, friends, and the nation. But the story was far from over. While Amanda was safe, the legal battle to ensure Bryan Fields faced justice and the long road to her recovery were just beginning. The chilling details of her abduction and captivity came to light as investigators and prosecutors prepared a rock-solid case against him. Bryan was charged with multiple crimes, including kidnapping, false imprisonment, and stalking, with additional charges for evidence found in his home and bunker. His trial became one of the most followed criminal cases in recent history. The horrifying evidence, from the videos Bryan recorded to the bunker itself, painted an undeniable picture of premeditated obsession and malice. Prosecutors argued that Bryan had stalked Amanda for months, learning her routines and exploiting her trust in the safety of her neighborhood. His calculated efforts to isolate her and conceal her captivity highlighted his dangerous nature. The jury was presented with chilling footage from the hidden cameras in the bunker, showing Amanda's days spent in fear and desperation. Although the videos were deeply unsettling, they were crucial in proving Bryan's intent and the psychological torment he inflicted on his victim. Bryan showed no remorse throughout the trial, maintaining an eerie silence as the evidence stacked against him. The defense attempted to argue that Bryan's mental health issues diminished his culpability, but the prosecution countered with the undeniable proof of his meticulous planning. After weeks of testimony, including a powerful statement from Amanda herself, the jury reached a verdict. Bryan Fields was convicted on all counts and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. For Amanda, the end of the trial marked a significant step toward closure, but her journey of healing was far from over. The trauma she endured left lasting scars, both physical and emotional. She struggled with anxiety, nightmares, and the overwhelming fear of being watched. However, Amanda refused to let her experience define her. She began attending therapy and leaned on her family and friends for support, slowly rebuilding her life. In the months following the trial, Amanda made the courageous decision to share her story publicly. She appeared in interviews and documentaries, hoping her experience would raise awareness about stalking, abduction, and the importance of taking threats seriously. Her openness resonated with millions, turning her into a symbol of resilience and hope. Amanda also became an advocate for stronger laws to protect stalking victims and improve support for survivors of violent crimes. Her efforts inspired legislative changes in her state, leading to stricter penalties for offenders and more resources for victims. The chilling footage of Amanda's abduction and captivity continued to haunt those who followed the case, but it also served as a stark reminder of her incredible strength. Her survival was not just a story of endurance, but a testament to the power of community, determination, and the human spirit. Against all odds, Amanda had reclaimed her life, transforming her darkest moments into a force for change and a beacon of hope for others.